Abraham. It's just an opportunity for us to sort of have a chat with Mr. Patel, and talk to him a bit about what a councillor is, what he does, what issues he tackles locally, nationally and internationally. And I wanted to repeat the contact details of Ramadan FM, just in case you want to take the opportunity to send a text message or a email, or even a Facebook message. If you had any questions for Mr. Patel that you wanted to address, by all means, please do so. It is, we don't often get an opportunity to be face to face with an official, someone who's been elected, who is basically in a quite a high-ranking post than sort of I am as a lay person. So this is definitely a good opportunity. So please do take the opportunity to basically call in, and text, and any questions you have. The contact number is 0333 011 6786. I repeat that. That's 0333 01 6786. If you wanted to listen in live, it's www.ramadanfm2018.com, and if you wanted to email us, it's info@ramadanfm2018.com. I'm going to pass the mic over to Mr. Patel to introduce himself, just a bit about himself, what his role is, what a councillor does, for those who are not sort of entirely familiar with what a council role is. Be quite honest with you, I've personally have come across a councillor, but not really paid too much attention to what their role is. So this is again a good opportunity for us to learn. So I'm going to make the mic live now for Mr. Patel to introduce himself.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. You can call me Maz, it's not a problem. Yeah, this honorific title of Mr. is actually too good for a humble person like me, I hope. Yeah, so I think your question is quite a valid one. A lot of people don't understand what a councillor is or does. It's because probably most people will know MPs, members of Parliament, and in London certainly, probably around the country, they'll know the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, etc. But the local representatives are absolutely very, very important. So those of you out there who are listening, I think take note, and then maybe find out who your local councillors are, because they are very, very important people in terms of making decisions locally for you. We are elected. In some places, elections happen every 2 years. In London, it happens every 4 years. But a term of election is 4 years. We had the recent elections not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago actually, May the 3rd, and I was elected for a 4-year term to serve the residents of Forest Gate South, which is where your studio is based. Essentially, the role of the council is to make sure local services are delivered to a very high standard. So local services includes your roads, your lighting, your libraries, your parks, the whole environment around you. It also affects how community engagement takes place, so how different communities, different faith groups interact with the council in providing those services. And we're also there to sort of do a bit of troubleshooting to make sure that any problems that people have with the council, we can resolve them or help resolve them. And really to be the doorstep champion, so regularly go knocking on doors, speaking to residents, finding out what their issues are, and trying to help. Really, that's the main thing. It's a councillor at the minimum needs to be doing all of these things, along with having a job, having a family, etc., etc. It's not always full time for everybody. Some councillors are full time, others are not. I have been in a position where I've been a full-time councillor, and I know it's a very big undertaking, because you really are making very important decisions for people in your area. So if your listeners are still unsure, I hope that helps them a little bit, but I'd certainly say go and find out who your local representatives are.
Maz, that was a fantastic introduction. It was quite informative. I think in those few minutes you've covered quite a bit, and I've made a few notes, a few things that we need to pick up on. But tell me something, just to sort of get this out of the way. You said you were an elected councillor. How does one go about becoming an elected councillor? I mean, if I wanted to become a councillor, how would I do it? I mean, if there's young people listening that aspire to get involved in politics, it may be a good point to start.
Sure. We have a system, an open democratic system. So anybody can, when an election notice is given, fill out a form and express their, make an application to become a councillor. That's the simple and easy way to do it. However, it's quite rare for people who don't have party affiliations to be successful at being a councillor. So generally speaking, what one would do is look at all the political parties and work out which one best represents them. You're never going to get one that completely represents your views. But let's say, like in my instance, I felt the Labour Party best represented what I stood for as a person. So become a member, get involved in your local Labour Party, and try and win their nomination to be one of their selected candidates in the local election. Now, that process can be very easy, can be very straightforward, but also it can be a longer route. So, for example, you may not get your party to support your nomination in their internal processes. You might have to wait, miss out on an election. But if you really wanted to give yourself a really good chance of success, it's best to obviously work together. So you'd go through the party process. Is the simple answer, if that helps.
There you go, Maz. Thank you very much for that. And those of you who ever had any aspiration for getting politically active, there's your starting point. Fill out a form, get a party affiliation, and get nominated and get cracking. I assume before that there must be some sort of community engagement. You've got to be active in the community. Is that right, Maz?
Yeah. I think, look, you will get people who are, let's say, really active in a political party, but aren't really active in the community.
Sure.
And it's quite easy for those people to get elected because the party will need to have their own people in these positions.
Sure.
If you do the community work, and that gives you a passion to then represent people,
sure,
I think you're a much better councillor.
Okay.
When I look back at my own journey, started many years ago with a group of friends, and we were very passionate about making change in the community. So we organised ourselves. We ran football tournaments and sporting events, and took people away to Wales and had camping trips. And I remember we went to Go 8 once. Along with that, I was quite heavily involved in the anti-war movement at the time. I was very passionate about international affairs. I still am. So I was an organizer in that respect, and I had a bit of a profile in the community as somebody who does things, and not just myself. I was with a group of people, and the people always change, and people move on, people come together, but I managed to stick at it. And I always feel that it's always better to go in with the community angle.
Absolutely. MashaAllah. That's an interesting insight, how you got to where you have, Maz.
Yeah.
And you know what, I wish and pray that, you continue working along those lines. We don't, as Muslims, we don't have enough people locally to aspire to be like. And you know what, looking at you here, you still seem quite relatively young. And basically, hopefully, our youth who are listening and who are watching through the live streaming video can look at you and think, you know what, I want to aspire for that. And that kind of leads me to our next topic. And the way I've sort of constructed it, and again, it is quite an open forum, so we can take it whichever way you want to take it, Maz. So if we start at local issues and then look at more sort of broader national issues and look at international issues,
sure.
that might be the best way to do it. And one of the things, as a parent, and as I enter into my middle ages and my kids are now sort of growing up, one of the things that's really sort of taken my time and a lot of concern. And if I had hair, I'd probably be pulling it out. Is the knife crime locally in sort of the East London and sort of throughout London, and the antisocial behaviour. So enlighten us, if anything, Maz. What are you doing to curtail that, to help abate that, and take our youth away from that?
A very, very relevant question. Just a few weeks ago, a young man by the name of Sammy, living in Forest Gate, not too far away from where you're based, he was a victim of an unprovoked knife crime, which sadly ended in him losing his life. He was a very bright student, and obviously I went to a vigil that was held in his memory on Wanstead Flats. It was a very moving tribute to him, conducted by local people, and his family were there, and you could see the absolute, outpouring of grief at the fact that another young man, or young person, shall I say, had, needlessly had his life cut short. Knife crime is an absolutely, any sort of crime, violent crime, but certainly knife crime is probably one of the most horrific aspects of what we've got in terms of our youth culture. I remember growing up in London. I came to London when I was 17 years old. At that time, I do remember people used to be quite afraid of carrying knives. However, these days, I think knives are just secondary. I think it's more people carry guns now, or people. When I say people, I mean young people into criminality carry guns as well now. Now, okay, let's move on to your question about what am I doing about it, but generally what we're doing about it, because I alone, what can I do? I can speak out against it. I can try and engage with youth about it. And I think as a local politician, a local representative, that's something that I have to do anyhow. And I hope I do that. But in terms of as a group of people being in a responsible position in this borough and living in London, I think it's quite clear that not enough's being done. I think we can blame it on a number of factors. There simply isn't enough police on the streets. I think the punishment doesn't fit the crime sometimes. People, it seems to be an easy way to try and find, people that do this, find an easy way to get out of it. So how can we resolve it? Well, I think we need to have lots more resource put into it. I think, so for example, the new mayor of Newham, she's announced that she'll be doubling youth hubs. I think that's one very, very good way of helping to, bring young people into pathways away from violence and away from criminality and away from gang culture. And to educate people that, look, you don't need to be carrying knives and guns on the streets. You don't need to be, resolving your differences over through the use of such horrific means. Is this just a political thing? I don't think it is. I think it's societal. I think we've got a situation in London where we have families that are living in very cramped conditions. We've got a massive housing problem. We've got a culture which tends to look at people who are less well off as worthless, as not being not being valued. We've got young people who feel that they are ostracized from wider society. So I think as a society we need to change, as a community we need to change. And for me, going back to your original point of what am I doing, I want to be an enabler. I want to be somebody who helps achieve this. I can't do it on my own. Certainly in my next term, one of my priorities will be on this issue, ASB crime, and I'm looking to work with partners. Certainly politically, it's there. We've got direction, we've got lead, but I'm looking to work with community organisations to really try and make some sort of impact, and
there you go. That seems like a manifesto pledge to me, inshallah. Next
Yeah,
time
well.
you get next time you get elected, you're going to tackle this further.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been elected now, so it's part of my this term's sort of manifesto, if you will. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know what? That's inspiring to hear. And I think maybe the question was maybe I should have phrased it such that, what are you doing? And you touched upon it. What can we do as a community and as parents?
Yeah.
That's the main thing. I think we as parents aren't doing enough. Any ideas on that, Maz? What parents can do?
I think parents can do a lot. I think parents can do a hell of a lot. Yeah. Parents, we have. I mean, I'm a parent myself. We have. We've been given a sacred duty. If you're religious, you'll believe in that. And if you're not, then fine, it's no problem. But my belief is that we've been given a sacred duty to look after God's creation, and what better creation than your own children, So we've got to bring them up in an environment where they feel they can express themselves, be the best that they can be, but also provide a safe environment. Make sure that your children are safe. So make sure that the friends that they keep, make sure that you encourage them away from getting themselves into the conveyor belt which leads into this kind of these kinds of things. So I think as a parent, don't ever take your eye off the ball, or give your children attention. And let me tell you, I'm actually saying that to myself. I spend a lot of time doing other things, and I'm always assessing myself, and I feel guilty at times, thinking, am I giving enough time to my children? Do they see enough of
You're
me?
in a tricky situation because we need your time as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it's a balancing act, I always try, and it's never enough. I mean, children grow up so easily, they're 2 years old once, and then blink of an eye they're 4, 5, 6, and
that's scary.
next thing you know, absolutely. So I think it's for all of us, and I hope nobody minds me saying this, but it's for all of us to try and devote more time to our children. If we do that collectively, I think that'll help.
Absolutely. And again, Maz, we need sort of people like yourself that are in a reputable profession, at a status in the society, and we need our young people to aspire to be like you, aspire to be leaders, aspire to be put back into the community. And unfortunately, far too often they are influenced by the wrong things, by the media, by games, violent games, and so on and so forth. And you know what? You touched upon the inequities of life. And I guess in East London, which has always been traditionally where were you brought up, Maz?
I was actually born in Lancashire. Well, I was born and brought up in Lancashire.
Hence the accent, yes.
Yeah.
Traditionally, I mean, I was born, bred here, and worked here, and I've seen how East London has traditionally been quite deprived, to be quite honest with you. But at the moment, we are seeing some real gentrification of certain parts of East London.
Yeah.
And I guess that sort of in some way exacerbates the inequities of life, and young people see those who have and those who don't. You understand? There's such a void between the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you know what, Maz, you've touched upon some important aspects of antisocial behaviour, knife crime, and how we can actually go in to tackle that. And hopefully the listeners are sort of making note of this. Let me repeat the contact number again, because I've been looking keenly at the Ramadan FM Facebook for any messages, for any questions, and emails, but nothing at this stage. Please do take this opportunity to fire some questions and take advantage of this phone-in session. Let me repeat the contact number. It's 0333 011 6786. And the email address is info@ramadanfm2018.com. So please do email, text, and so on and so forth. Right, okay. Maz, is there anything else you wanted to mention in regards to that antisocial knife crime, or shall I move on to other things?
No, I think we can. I mean, you can never not talk. And I think it's a very good point you make. It'd be interesting to hear what your listeners think in terms of how they think we can find solutions for this. All I'd say is it's a joint effort. We've all got to pull in, and I think there will be ideas out there where people have got, something which will work better than what we're doing at the moment. So the status quo simply is not working, so we've got to change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've got to find something. We've got to do something, and you know what? Our Deen teaches a good way of handling things. I guess it may be a combination of looking at the society, looking at our Deen, looking into ourselves, and seeing what we can actually do. Which then actually leads me on to my next question, Maz. And again, you may or may not be doing something to tackle this, but I'm sure there'll be some sort of initiative. And to be honest with you, as a community, we certainly need to be tackling this. And it's this buzzword of Islamophobia, which we are currently sort of suffering from.
Yeah.
Maz, I'll pass the mic over to you. Tell me a bit about it. What have you done? What are you doing?
Well, it's a very good question, especially in light of the Muslim Council of Britain writing to the Conservative Party, asking them to conduct an investigation into Islamophobia within that organisation. We can talk about, I think there are a lot of, there's lots of discrimination done against various communities. You know, we had the whole controversy over anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. And I think, again, that was something that we all have to work upon to make sure that these types of discriminations are ended. They're given no breathing space. But I think this question about Islamophobia is one that's quite pertinent to me personally, because I have suffered it myself. It's not been discreet Islamophobia, but it's been open. You know, I've had people shout anti-Muslim slogans to me. And it can be very, very painful. Now, the thing is that we are in London, we're in Forest Gate, we're in Newham, which is the most diverse place in the country. So we have a protective bubble. We don't actually see the effects as much as others do. So, for example, a sister wearing a hijab in Cornwall, or a brother with a beard in, let's say, West Sussex, they will be... Anytime something like this happens, you know, they'll feel it straight away. Yeah, they're not in the protective bubble that we're at, and I think what we need to have, and I've said this a number of times. I've actually made representations to my local members of Parliament, and I've spoken about it within the Labour parties. We need to have legislative protection against Islamophobia. And until that doesn't happen, we are going to have newspapers publishing those disgusting headlines about a criminal who happens to, rape somebody, but because he has a Muslim sounding name, it's then a Muslim who's raping somebody. Or we have, headlines where, say Mo Farah is not regarded as a real Brit, or Sadiq Khan is somehow a fifth column columnist. And that all comes down to this insinuation that Muslims equals bad. It's Islamophobia, as you will. And we need to get legislative protection. That's the way. And my fight is to campaign on getting that early day motion, a government bill, hopefully, in Parliament, through Parliament, which then makes this a criminal offence, like we've got with anti-Semitism, and rightly so, like we've got with racism or discrimination. And as I said, if we don't do that, then sadly, you're going to see much more of this. It's going to continue. It's going to rise. I think, You know, at the moment, it's not well reported, but if you look at organisations such as Tell Mama, if you're on their Twitter feeds or go to their website, there are so many incidents of Islamophobia. It's frightening, actually. And I think Saida Wasi, Baroness Wasi, I remember she said one very, very hard-hitting thing, which was that Islamophobia has passed the dinner table test. So it's now, it's very anti-Muslim sentiment. It's quite common. That's what she's trying to say. So that's my. I think that's how we can.
Wow.
Work on that.
You know what? That's a deep topic, Maz. I think we could talk on it all day. I'm going to take a break, give the listeners a bit of a break.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll come back after that.
For restaurants and large events, so no matter how big or small your order is, Al Akbar's is the name to remember. Visit us now at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, Forest Gate, E7 9PA, or call us at 0208 472 5742. Al Akbar's, the name to remember.
Yo bro, Cuzzy's getting married and I need to get hold of a car.
Yar, I know some boys who know SPM car hire. They got the best cars in town. Rolls Royces, Ranges, Maseratis, Aston Martins. Cause you name it, they got it with the best prices in town.
Sorted. Looks like I'm going to this wedding in a Range then.
They'll drop off the car and pick you up once you're done. Just give them a ring on 01798 397 916 or visit them online spmhire.com or find them on Instagram.
Looking for meat and groceries? Look no further than Waris Food Store in Walthamstow. Visit the store to view our special Ramadan offers. 420 Hull Street, Walthamstow, E17 9AA. Or for free delivery, call us on 0208 521 0000. We have fresh deliveries of poultry and vegetables every day. Waris Food Store in Walthamstow.
Reliance Solicitors fight to protect your legal rights. Our firm offers a wide range of services including immigration, family law, commercial law, civil litigation, personal injury, landlord and tenant disputes and employment law. Visit us at 602A High Road, 7 Kings, Ilford, IG3 8BU or call 0207 183 5439. Reliance Solicitors, where every client matters.
Bridgen Solicitors in Ilford, the name you can trust. We provide services in immigration, family law, landlord and tenant matters, commercial leases and civil litigation. We also deal in personal injury claim and road traffic accidents. Call us on 0203 475 4545. Visit us at 170 Cranbrook Road, Ilford, IG1 4LX.
Ramadan FM 2018,
the voice of British Muslims.
Atlantic Distributions. Whether it is frozen fish, marinated Lahori masala fish, or lamb offals, we have them available at very competitive prices. We are wholesale suppliers to restaurants, butchers, and caterers. Visit us at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, London, E7 9PA. Contact us on 07415 474 185.
Usman needs the adhesive to work. If not, his day will be a disaster. Ah! So, Usman, if you really need something to bond, grab a tube of CT1 from your local stockist. An incredibly powerful sealant and construction adhesive that's fast, flexible and strong. It can be used anywhere, even underwater. For more info, ct1limited.com or follow us on Facebook or ring us on 0208 555 1448.
In an age of technological advancement, mass communication and social media, having the right website and app can be the difference that your business needs. AppSite Tech are here to take your business to the next level. No matter how simple or how sophisticated your requirements are, our technicians will work with you to create a bespoke website and app for your organization. Call us now on 07538081212 or visit appsitetech.co.uk and book your free consultation now.
Amigos, the signature name when it comes to burgers and shakes. Our succulent burgers are prepared in front of you while you wait. Whether you go for the 6-ounce Mexican or the 10-ounce Texan, or you decide to go for a messy fries or buffalo wings, one thing you're guaranteed is quality. We've also got a range of desserts including our trademark shakes in all your favourite flavours. We're based at 400 Cranbrook Road in Gants Hill, so come down to dine in or order in on Uber Eats or Just Eat. Amigos, hats off to great burgers.
Ramadan.
3. Welcome back, listeners. You know what? This show gets even more exciting and even more interesting. Having Maz Patel, a counsellor in the office, in the studio wasn't enough. Ismail Sethi has brought along Wahid, who is a superintendent for the borough of Newham and Waltham Forest, but he told me not to say too much because he wanted to introduce himself, so I'm going to hand the mic over to him. So, mic over to you, Wahid.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be here, and Ramazan Mubarak to all of your listeners as well. Okay, so as you've kindly said, my name is Wahid Khan. I am superintendent here in Newham, but as you may or may not know, Newham, from a policing perspective, is merging with Waltham Forest to create a new basic command unit, a new BCU, which will be called the North East BCU, and I will be one of the superintendents heading up an area of the neighbourhoods and partnerships within that new BCU.
MashaAllah.
Thank you very much.
Again, off behalf of Ramadan FM and Minhaj Quran International London, we welcome both our honourable guests, Maz Patel and Wahid. Wahid, Cam, you guys were talking about Islamophobia just before you guys went on a break, and that's something that's a real hot topic. It's a real hot topic. It's something that's basically, again and again we see the media talking about it. But what I want to know from a policing perspective, Wahid, is how much actually of an issue is it? I mean, how many Islamophobic attacks or a crime is there? Because is it an issue which is blown out of all proportion? Because we know if you basically jump on this bandwagon where anything you say is Islamophobic just because you feel it is, it may not actually be Islamophobic, then you create a sort of like an environment where, anything that happens, if a bus driver tells a lady wearing a niqab to remove her niqab just so he can see her identity, then that could be, she might start saying, oh, this is an Islam, because she feels that this is Islamophobia. She feels victimized. So you'll be able to tell us on that. How much of an actual issue is it?
I'll just start by saying, obviously, Islamophobia is a form of hate crime, and all hate crimes are as abhorrent as each other in any shape or any form that it comes in. The best way to try and define a hate crime would be that it's what the person who is the victim in that scenario feels it to be. So if, as a victim, you feel it's a hate crime because it was Islamophobia or it was because of another characteristic protected by law, then all of those are equally classed as a hate crime, and we will investigate them as such. The challenge that we have, I guess, is around trying to make sure that we inspire confidence and that people feel that they can approach the police and that their concerns or whatever the event that's happened to them, that it will be investigated properly and that they can feel confident the police will do so. And that in turn will hopefully encourage people to feel more that they can report more. So some of this is it's like a circle. You need to make people feel confident enough that they can report hate crime. Yeah. And that would in turn just inspire in more of the fact that people would feel that they can report crime and that we can deal with it more. The information that we have, it is an issue, and it's a pan-London, in fact a pan across the whole of the country. It does happen, but we equally know that there's not enough reporting that happens because of we need to try and encourage more confidence and encourage more people to come forward about such concerns. And encouraging, that's quite a loaded word, because when you're saying encouraging people to report crime, obviously these people are victims of crime. A lot of the time they're going to feel vulnerable, and I take it some of the work that you do as well, Maz, in terms of working with
vulnerable people, you know, being a representative of the council, your work's going to cross, isn't it, with trying to put these programs in place, these workshops, these seminars, etc., in order to educate the community about how important it is to sort of like report these crimes. I mean, how does your work link with Maz?
Well, I do know Wahid, and one of the reasons I know him is because of my councillor work, you know. So we got to know each other after he came into Newham. Was it a year, 2 years ago?
Last July, I think it was. So.
Last July. Well, okay. Well,
yeah.
It seems longer because of the amount of work,
yes.
amount of issues that we've sort of worked on. And yes, we in the council we have a lot of overlap with the local police, and I think Wahid's along with one of his, I think now departed colleagues, but both of them were absolutely crucial. Some of the things that we do, you're absolutely right, is we have, for example, at the Forest Gate Youth Hub just up the road, we have youth engagement programs. On the other side, through our libraries, through our community centres, we have lots of programs where, you know, we bring community groups together. And I think one of those things is about making sure they feel safe to report to the police. And I think Wahid's been there on a number of occasions. And that's the kind of work that we do as a council.
And just to emphasise, picking up what Maz says, absolutely, we work very closely with the council. It's one of our key partners, and we have officers that are actually based and work with your law enforcement officers as well. So we work together on a lot of this stuff.
Cam?
Interesting thing, Wahid, you started by saying, you're talking a bit about a merger with Newham and Waltham Forest and the BCU unit. I'm a bit sceptical, buddy, and prove me wrong. Is that something to do with further funding reductions and trying to make more cost savings and ultimately reduce the number of police officers on the road, on the street?
So, I mean, there's no denying an element of it is about the finances. As in any public sector field, we need to be a bit more constrained in terms of what we have financially. But part of it is also, and equally also, around looking at how can we work smarter and more effectively. In the past, there's certain practices that have happened across London and in the policing world that actually we need to reconsider and see if we can be more effective. So yes, I'm not going to deny some of it is finance, but actually it's about trying to be more effective in what we do. So I'll give you an example. So there are currently 2 superintendents in Newham. Well, there were until we started to do this merger at the moment that we're transitioning into, but there's 2 superintendents. One would be myself, and I would have been responsible for the operations, the neighbourhoods and partnerships, and all of the uniform side that you would effectively see. And then there was another detective superintendent, Zena Marshall, who would be responsible for the CID side. So those are your 2 superintendents here in Newham. And then you'd also have a chief superintendent who would be above us. And then we will be supported by various chief inspectors and our frontline colleagues. That would be mirrored in Waltham Forest and elsewhere. An example of how we're trying to be a bit more effective is rather than having 2 chief supers, we have 1 chief super. And that 1 chief super will be the borough commander for this new BCU, and they will oversee both sides. And that's an example of something we're trying to be a bit more effective in what we're trying to achieve. As a superintendent I will be responsible for Newham as well as Waltham Forest when it comes to neighbourhoods, partnerships and engagement. And that means it allows me to focus more around making sure that when we engage with schools, when we engage with young people, when we engage with local residents or local businesses, or even when we work with the council, trying to be a bit more streamlined, a bit more focus around that, so that another superintendent can pick up the work around the operations, for example, so they can focus on that. So yes, there is an element of finance, but it's also about saying, well, how can we be a bit more effective in the new world that we're in?
So I think the last word is...
You did well there, though, didn't it?
You did. And the other thing I would say is, we live in a digital world. The world has moved on since back in the 70s, 80s, when we were younger. So all officers now have a tablet or a laptop, and that enables them to spend more time on the front line. That will enable all of my officers and all of my colleagues to be out there serving the community, the residents, the businesses, rather than having to come back to the police station and spending time in the police station to do paperwork or whatever needs to be done, the admin works that need to be done, that can all be done via the tablets, that can all be done via the laptops that they have, the IT facilities that they have. So I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that the BCU provides opportunities as well as challenges.
It's comforting to know, Wahid, basically, because in my lifespan, I'm old enough to remember some real local police sort of hubs that I don't know in existence. Do you understand? And it seems to be the scapegoat every time there's a knife crime. Every time Sadiq Khan is put on the hot seat, he says, "Oh, it's the central government. It's funding. It's the lack of police officers." So that's what sort of instigated the question. So as long as it's more about efficiency and streamlining, I trust it will sort of work well.
Obviously, as a police officer, I don't get involved in the politics of this.
Sure.
Maz can, and I'm sure Maz might want to come in. But from a police officer's perspective, my job is to look at what I've been provided with in terms of budgets, in terms of resources, and then deploy them in the most effective way that I can to serve the community.
That's quite interesting, Maz. I mean, well, what's your take on this? Is it all about cuts?
Yeah, well, I mean, as far as in the short answer is it is about cuts. When you ask the police to be more streamlined, to be more effective, and you're merging boroughs, effectively you are cost cutting. Now, the fact of the matter is, and the Mayor of London is absolutely right, that certainly over his term, he's been there for 2 years now, I believe, police numbers have been reduced. Why? Because there simply isn't enough money to pay for them. That's come as a direct result of austerity, which started in 2010, I think it was, under the coalition government, and then continued under the Tories. So the fact is that when you can be as efficient as you want. You can try and, and this is no slight on Wahida and his colleagues. They're doing an absolutely marvellous job, and we should always thank them every single day for putting their lives at risk for ordinary Londoners. But the fact of the matter is, once you start trying to make organisations more efficient, then please, let's not beat about the bush. You're trying to save money there. And if you look at police numbers, if you look at the funds that the police have got to actually, fight crime. I agree. Let's give officers iPads and tech them up and give them the best equipment. But the bottom line is, we need the officers. But I mean, Maz, a lot of people would say, well, you know what, prevention is better than cure. At the end of the day, if police budgets are being cut and that money is basically being saved and then put into preventative measures, for example, workshops, seminars, education, etc., then surely, ultimately, we're going to basically see it may be a sudden increase in crime for a short period of time, but then ultimately, crime levels will drop. I want to hear your take on that. I'll give you some statistics. I've quickly brought them up. From March 2010 to March 2017, the number of police officers has fallen by 20,000. So we have
across the UK, across London?
Those are Home Office statistics. From 143,000 officers, we've now got 123,000 officers. I'll also point you to a leaked Home Office report that said in clear terms that government cuts to the police may have encouraged violent offences. So when we spoke earlier about knife crime and violent crime, here's a Home Office report saying exactly the point that we're making, that when you make cuts, when you are salami slicing all the way, I mean, eventually the salami is going to come to the end, and I think we've gone beyond that point. So those are just two hard facts that I'm proposing here.
I think we've touched on a really a contentious point there. I think Maz speaks about it very passionately.
Yeah, he does indeed.
He does indeed. But that's an interesting statistic. But I don't think we'd press Wahid on it too much, because...
I mean, like I say, obviously Maz is a politician. As a councillor, is free to say. From my perspective, just to couple of things.
Yeah.
Firstly, obviously, whatever resources we're given, we do the best that we can. And just to emphasize, as Maz has, the frontline officers that I have, it's a privilege to do what I do. It's a huge honor to be a superintendent that can be leading such a dedicated workforce that is passionate about what they deliver in challenging circumstances.
Hey, you know what? Sorry, I'm passionate about both of you guys. I mean, I look at you, I look at a counsellor, I look at Wahid, and I think to myself, wow, you know what? These people are the inspiration for our youth. And if any of the youth are listening, please call in, talk to these guys, you know?
and you know what? It is that word passion that I want to basically just emphasize on here. Having a passionate police force will always ensure that they are going to do the best that they can with the resources they are provided to basically do the job that they are tasked to do. However, being a member of a voluntary organization, I also know that the volunteers, I know a lot about passion and how that passion can easily be dampened if the relevant tools are not given to these police officers to carry out their work. Because obviously if they haven't got those tools, then there's demotivation. Do you see that from this is not a political question at all, this is more of a policing issue, because you need to ensure that your troops that you've got on the ground are passionate, they are motivated. Do you see that this demotivation factor or this lack of passion does tend to creep in? What's your experience of that?
So the passion, I would say, is there. That hunger. When you become a police officer, you do it as a vocation. It's like a lifestyle. It's not just a job. It's actually a lifestyle. It's part of you as a person. So when you become a police officer, you do it because you believe in something and you're giving back to the community and to the city that you know and love. That passion, I don't think you can ever kind of undermine, and that never really goes away. It's challenging because obviously the other external factors, around the finances, around the structures, around the resourcing, yes, that plays a role, but the passion, you can't, that would never be diminished. That is as strong as ever, and all of the officers that I speak to, they are dedicated and they love the job.
Sorry, I just keep monopolising the airtime. I'm sorry, but it's just such an interesting topical sort of discussion. You mentioned there's the 23,000 Maz drop in officers this year alone.
No, over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Just over. If you saw it last 3 years, there's been 3,000 police officers over 3,000 police officers that have been cut in London alone.
Could it be?
That's. I mean, if you think about 3,000.
You have got a call coming in, guys.
Oh, mashallah. Shall we take that?
Your headphones.
Okay, cool.
And what do I press?
The red button. Come on, Cam.
I'm a novice.
Put the phone slider up here.
Which one is that? The line hold?
It should say phone on there.
It says line hold.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
And who do we have today?
My name is Shahid. I'm from Minhaj. Obviously, I welcome Wahid Khan and Maz Patel.
Shahid, welcome to you to live on air. Did you have a particular question, or did you want to simply welcome?
I just wanted to ask. Well, I wanted to ask both of them, but particularly Wahid Khan. We unfortunately recently attended there was a gathering a couple of weeks ago with regard to Sami Sidham, who unfortunately was killed. And we've seen a number of people who have been knifed to death, very young people. I just wanted to find out what they felt about this, because there was some discussion during that meeting when we were there, which was attended by Shabnam as well, by Shabnam, and also by the mayor. And what we were looking at, there is something which we might sort of explore, which is the situation where in Strathclyde, particularly, and in Scotland, where they're looking at a different way to tackle knife crime. I'm not sure whether whether Wahid is aware of this or not. I just want to find out. If he's not, then I can give you some background on what they're doing in Scotland.
Yeah, but I mean, I am familiar with this. I mean, the first thing I would say is obviously the loss of Sammy's life is tragic in the circumstances that it went. In any person that loses their life, it is a personal tragedy. It's something that I fully sympathise with, and we wish it didn't happen. And that equally applies to Sammy, as well as all of the other people that have unfortunately been died in London. I'm not sure where the question was. I mean, I appreciate the point around Scotland, and I appreciate.
Yeah, no, you see, because I think, for my personal view is at the moment, I mean, the Scottish way to deal with this is to look at it from a public health issue rather than to deal with knife crime as a crime. It's actually to look at it in a different perspective. And what I was reading up was about how Scotland in particular started looking at, first of all, they started looking at a very conventional approach. The police played a central part. They go around, they're arresting a lot of people. There was a lot of stop and search. And then what they did is they had mapped all the various gangs in the various areas. And they actually encouraged them to voluntarily attend what they call a sheriff's court. Mm-hmm. And the idea really was that they would be supported by community leaders, people who had a lot of experience in various things, and social workers all coming together. And the idea really was that these people then arrive at court voluntarily to talk about the issues around gangs and why knife crime is happening. And then they basically, the intervention would be a holistic approach. So the idea really was that after being shown a picture of themselves in court, they were then they were actually confronted by people, particularly victims of knife crimes, and there was a mother who actually spoke about how her son was killed and what it felt like. And then after that, these individuals are offered counselling support if it's the case that they need jobs and how to actually come out of this life. So there was a more holistic approach. Is that something that the police at a local level considered?
So the thing I would say is obviously we need to take a multifaceted, multi-agency, working collaborative approach to dealing with an issue like this. Part of that is police doing their job in terms of enforcement, but actually part of it is also the preventative, the engagement side of policing as well. And part of that is linking in with Maz and his colleagues over at the council and all of our other partners as well. So from a policing perspective, we are trying to engage more with our young people. So we do have schools officers that link in with schools, and I am looking at ways of how we can improve that. So I'm working with the head teachers both here in Newham and in Waltham Forest around how can we be more effective in trying to reach out to young people at schools so that they can see the alternative ways and try and deter them from becoming involved with criminal activity. So there is some of that, as well as the enforcement side that actually the police always do, but the prevention side is as important. And I think working with Maz and others is part of that, and working with yourself. So part of this radio being here today is trying to get the message out there to say, look, the police is here to serve you. We work with the local authority, we work with all of our other partners, and we're here to try and make sure how can we try and stop our young people becoming involved in such criminal activity and try and prevent some people from being killed. So Maz, I think from a local authority perspective, we work together on a lot of things, and knife crime is absolutely it is the priority. The new chief superintendent that we have, Mr. Tucker, he's one priority that he always puts as a message out to all of us as officers is that serious youth violence is key. We need to try and prevent this, and we work closely with Maz and his colleagues and the new mayor in Newham. She is as dedicated to achieving this, and we will continue to work with them on this.
Yeah, I'll add to that. See, it's about societal change as well, and about making sure that we all work together. So there's different stakeholders in all of this. I think we've spoken about cuts and the fall in police numbers. I'm quite clear in terms of what I feel is the problem here that leads on to this thing. But even if you had lots of policemen on the street, or policemen and women, shall I say, on the street, it's not going to lead to a dramatic reduction in the types of crimes that we see just because of that. It's going to be going down because there's other initiatives taking place. So Wahid would then be able to use those resources to maybe do the community engagement work, which he probably is, needs other stakeholders to help in, and we're there to fill in that gap. But our budgets have been cut. We've had over £100 million cut over the last 4 to 6 years. So across the piece, this government has been about cutting resources to frontline services such as the police, such as your local authority, and it's imperative that people out there know this, understand this, and try and do something about it. I think what we've got to do, if you're talking just about knife crime, we've got to make it the deterrent much more greater. We've got to make sure that these gangs that come from all over, are all over the East End and all over London, that we focus on them. But again, it always comes down to working in partnership. And I think the austerity agenda needs to end. We need to get more money to the police, more money to local councils and local authorities to band together and make our streets safer.
Shahid, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, and it goes a long way into answering it. And I'm very grateful to both of the gentlemen that we were looking at other ways, and rather than just saying, oh, it's a crime and we need to deal with it. I think it's more looking at it very holistically. And I understand, we've got some issues, but I think much more important, and obviously from the platform of Minhaj and two gentlemen who are sort of hosting this show, really, it really is about communities coming together, and it includes faith communities and places like Minhaj al-Quran, which does a lot anyway, but I think it can do much more to actually work with the police force. And we really want to work as community leaders, working all together with different ideas, different backgrounds, different experiences, and all coming together and working together very much with the police force to tackle this particular bane of our society.
Shahid, Assalamu alaikum, Shahid. Sorry, I didn't say salam to you. I mean, I've known Shahid for a good number of years, and you're an absolutely fantastic asset to this organisation and to this community. I think what we need to do, one of the things that I've seen other Christian organisations do, is have something called street pastors. So they will go out on the streets and they'll talk to people. They won't preach. They're not there to convert people, unless people want to have spiritual help as well. What we need to do is to have with the police, in obviously we've got to be safe, but to actually go and talk to these young people in their own environments and say, look, come into our mosques and our churches and our temples, our community centres, our libraries, get them involved in local things, take them out of these pathways into these into gangs and criminality. I think one of the other things that I saw this week, and obviously maybe Wahid can shed some light on, is the epidemic of drug mules. Young people being shipped off across the country to deal in drugs. All of that comes from the same sort of cesspit, shall I say, the same pool. How we're going to drain that pool? I mean, I think that's how, Shahid, maybe your organisation can help.
Well, I mean, obviously Shahid's an older brother of mine, and when I joined Minhaj al-Quran, I was a kid, and Shahid was literally my mentor, along with my older brother. So I think from an organisational point of view, as Minhaj al-Quran, one of the tools, we've like you said, we run multiple projects on so many different issues. We've got the peace education program, which is basically theologically giving the clarification on the Islamic perspective of jihad, etc. We're working on that front. You've got the Minhaj Dawah project, which is reaching out, and it does do that. It goes into prisons, and it goes where you will find that criminals will accumulate, and tries to basically give them a way. And obviously, as an Islamic organization, we see as Islam as a center point of our faith. And but another tool is this radio. Now we've got the 5-year license. That this is going to go, inshallah, a huge way towards bringing communities together, because this is what it does. It allows us to sit together like we are right now, and we're on social media. We will also be on the FM airwaves as well, to discuss these issues. And the amount of youth that have been involved in just running radio shows and coming up with their own content from things like music and rap and whatever, without having rap that has no meaning to it, with suddenly rap that has meaning, which has purpose. Yesterday I had a show called From Ignorance to Islam. I had two former gangsters who both served time in prison, and basically both of them had a very violent background. I had them on the show, and now both of them are working in rehab. You know, they're actually going out there to the communities. They're both like in their mid-30s. They're going to like 14-year-olds because that's when they picked up that first weapon and shot their first gun when they were 14 years old. And they're going back to these 14-year-olds and say, I've done that. You know, and the education that people are getting through the radio station is phenomenal. So, you know, it's very community based, and I think that, you know, it's going to go a long way.
The only thing I would add to that is obviously county lines, which is around what you're talking about, which is about how young children are used to, you know, transfer or sell drugs in different parts of the country or different parts of the city. It's a huge challenge. And the way to deal with that is to deal with everything you've just said. It's about making sure that parents, it's about working with schools, it's about working with community centres, it's about working with temples, mosques, churches, the street pastors. Yes, we work very closely. We do have a street pastor here, organisation that's set up here in Newham. I think that was a very fantastic, they do fantastic work. When I went to their launch, I was with them for that evening. They do great work when they're out and about in Stratford. And we need to continue that.
Right.
We need to try and find.
We've got another caller in, buddy. So let's take this call. Assalamu alaikum. You're through to Ramadan FM.
Assalamu alaikum, brother. I was just speaking a few minutes ago on the radio station. I just got cut off.
Shahid again. Sorry, apologies.
Yes.
Have you got another questions? Apologies.
No. I just wanted to, thank both of your guests. I think it's really, really important that myself and brother, brother Wahid have spoken in the past. We talked about anything that the Minhaj can get involved with to actually work with you guys to tackle any of these type of issues. We're always here, and we're just waiting for you. If you, as soon as you're ready, just come and talk to us and see what sort of projects we can plan together to actually, work with you to tackle some of these issues. Not only knife crime, but there's gun crime. There's all sort of issues that we really want to positively work with you.
Absolutely. We do need to give, and Shahid, we speak quite often anyway, regularly anyway, so, and inshallah we'll continue to do that, and we'll pick up this afterwards, definitely.
Super. Can I add something, if you don't mind? Now that you've got this 5-year license, you know what would be really great is for the two of you to have a regular show. Seriously, joking aside, because you know what, it's look,
Cam, you've got a regular show. I've convinced you to do a regular show.
Look, I'm Joe Public. I got nothing to say. I'm just basically winging it, right? These guys are very important personalities, and you know what it is, and I keep saying this. I can't stress this enough. And Brother Shahid touched upon it. You know what? As the youth of today, they don't have positive role models, and you guys are positive role models, and don't belittle that in any way, what you've achieved. When I look at you, I'll go home and talk to my son about Wahid, and I'll talk about to them about Maz, these Muslim personalities have command such a role in the community. And what I find is that our youth don't have access to people like you. Do you understand? They need to be able to talk to you about you, to aspire to be like you. That's the main thing. Whereas they're stuck on their PlayStations, watching these media portraying gangsters and that being cool and hip. Whereas being a professional and giving back to society isn't so cool and hip. Do you understand? Our kids need to grow up learning that and understanding that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say a little about me. I don't know. Sure. I'm not entirely sure about me being the person to look up to, but what I will say, I think what Wahid's achieved is absolutely phenomenal. I think we ought to. No, and let's be honest.
He's humble.
I remember in the 80s where when Newham was suffering from horrific racism within the police force, we had the Newham 7 and the Newham 8, which people have not forgotten. We had the Newham Monitoring Project, which I remember very, very much. We were given cards that if you get stopped by the police, you what your rights are, and we've come a long way since then. We have got a person of colour, person who is of the Islamic faith, but moreover, he's somebody who comes from this community, and is giving back. And I think that's testament to how things have changed in London. I think a lot more needs to change. We spoke about Islamophobia. A lot more needs to change. I think in terms of having our own radio shows, we could probably have something called the Maz and Wahid show, you know, something like that maybe.
Absolutely, bro.
Well, I think there's a Call Sadiq on LBC, no?
Yes, there is, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So why can't we have that for
No, I think to
community.
contribute to the success of your organisation. Like, I've known your organisation for over 20 years. I've known people in your organisation who are no longer here. They've passed away. May God bless them, and you know, everything else. But in terms of the good that you provide and the good that you do, yeah, absolutely. This thing will be huge, especially because it's on the FM. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
People will listen to the FM thing more than they'll go online at the moment.
Ishmael, what do you anticipate as the listenership will be once you've gone?
Well, I think
mainstream?
what it is as community radio station, and as I've been leading the project, my research shows that listenership is not huge in terms of numbers when you're comparing them to like TV channels, etc. But what it is community radio is very different. Community radio builds a community, a small, you know, so your listenership will be small, but it will be all the community leaders who will be listening to what. So we will know what the Christian community is doing. We'll know what the leaders of the Islamic community is doing. We'll know what the leaders of the Hindu community is doing, and it'll bring these communities together. So it helps build that very tight knit community which we need.
Well, can I say, Ish? One of the reasons I actually came into politics, and there was a radio station called Radio Ummah many years ago, and I used to do a show with. I used to do a show with one of my friends, you know, who's moved on to other bigger and better things, but that was a political show.
Yeah.
And we used to just concentrate. It used to be after Tarawih. At that time, Tarawih used to finish about 8, 9 o'clock. So we used to do it from 10 till 12 or 1 o'clock. I can't remember which. But that actually led to a group of us getting together and trying to make change politically. Some of them dropped out. Others did other things. Others became very successful people. I myself, you know, ended up being in frontline.
Just put that. Press the red button.
Apologies.
Yeah, I ended up going into frontline politics, etc. So you're right, radio does make a big difference. It's made a difference to me and other people, you know. So, you know, we can't underscore.
It's a point of access.
Yeah, point of access.
Sometimes we don't understand how to get the help we want or the advice and guidance we want.
Yeah.
And if it's something like a radio, it's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you know, I just want to bring in something here before I bring Wahid back into the discussion. Just want to mention a point, which is that, alhamdulillah, you know, Minhaj al-Quran, the founder of Minhaj al-Quran, Shaykh al-Islam, Dr. Tahir al-Qadri, it's his vision that's basically provided us with this platform that so many youngsters are involved, because a lot of people, you know, you have to remember now the dynamics are very different after 9/11. What's happened with the terrorism stuff? Now mosques are bringing counsellors in and people of the other faith leaders, and having their snaps taken, showing that, you know what, we are peaceful Muslims and we are integrated. But this is something which Dr. Tahir al-Qadri was doing in the late 70s, early 80s. You know, and he was basically outcasted at that time. He was saying, you know, what's this? You're bringing. I remember when he first celebrated Christmas in the mosque. You know, he was basically, all sorts of fatwas were given against him, but he stuck to his stance, and he said that no, this is actually, as an Islamic scholar, as an author of 1,000 books, as the producer of thousands of scholars, as the founder of a chartered university, which its students are the scholars which graduate from this university are equivalent to the degree is equivalent to Al-Azhar University in Egypt, the beacon of Islamic knowledge. I'm telling you that no, this is Islam. Allowing Christians to come into the masjid and pray according to their faith, this is Islam. And he stuck solid to that, and he opened up a lot of minds, Muslim minds, and now that's why you see, you know, the organization at the forefront of trying to basically build these bridges and try to work for the community, because it's not about the ummah and the concept of ummah as well. The concept of ummah is not just, we talk about the Muslim ummah. There's actually, when we talk about the ummah, when the Prophet ﷺ came to Medina, and the Jewish community was there, the Christian community were there, the pagans were there. He said that you are now all one ummah. He used the word ummah for the whole community. And that's why the scholars divide the word ummah into two, ummat al-hijaba and ummat al-da'wah. Yeah, so that is still one ummah. At the end of the day, we are humans, we are one nation, and this, hearing that from an Islamic point of view, I think opens up a lot of minds. But enough about that. Wahid, we were talking about how things have changed. One big thing is stop and search. You know, a lot of people used to, back in the 80s, complain about, you know, that this stop and search was targeted to particularly the black community, but the Asian community as well. How much of that is an issue now, and what are the challenges with stop and search that police officers have to deal with? So
I'd start by saying, obviously, the environment in which we police now is very different in a good way to how it was, as it certainly improved upon as it was back in the 80s and the 90s. We've learned a lot from the experiences of the 80s and 90s. You know, everyone will know about the Macpherson report. Everyone will know about the challenges the police have had historically. There's no denying that. We've made a lot of changes and a lot of improvements. I mean, I'll give you an example of a few things that I know that I've seen here in Newham that we've already implemented. So we have what's called a stop and search and monitoring group. And that consists of people that have an interest, or residents or local people from within Newham, and they are entitled to hold the police to account. So part of their job is to randomly view footage that police officers have from their body-worn cameras when they stop and search someone, and they can see how that was conducted. They can question, they can scrutinise how effective the police were in terms of that stop and search. So the monitoring group plays a key part. The body-worn cameras that all officers who are out on the streets in uniform, or even not, but the ones that are out on the streets that have a camera, they will be switched on when they stop and search someone. That is policy. That is clear Metropolitan Police policy. Part of that is to give confidence to all sides, actually. So the person that's being stopped will know that actually, they can be confident that it's being captured. So whatever's said and done will be there. If there is a complaint afterwards, then that can be dealt with because the evidence will be captured via the camera. But also it provides the officer as well, both sides, the person being stopped as well as the officer, both sides will feel a level of confidence that wasn't there before, because they can both take something away to say, well, actually, if there is a complaint, we can deal with this. So it provides confidence. It makes people feel that actually there is a level of scrutiny that perhaps wasn't there in the past. Stop and search is one of the tools. It's not the be-all and end-all of trying to resolve the issues and tackle the kind of issues that we face here in London and in Newham. But it's one very effective, very important tool. And as long as a police officer, and we provide this message, and I give this message to all of my officers, as long as it's done professionally, lawfully, then absolutely there is no reason why a stop and search can't be done.
But that's just it, isn't it, Wahid? I mean, what is law? What is legally? What is lawfully? What is morally? These are all sort of like, okay, maybe legally, not legally. You've probably got definitive lines, but morally, it's quite vague. I mean, so I would say, how would I mean? You see a bunch of guys hanging out on the streets, and you basically go and stop and search them. So is that how does it work? So because how many of these? With that. How many of these stop and search actually lead to arrests? Okay. Have you got any stats for us?
I can take you through some. Let me start with the stop and search law first. So all police officers have to abide by the law when it comes to conducting a stop and search. And there's various legislation in place that enables an officer, if they meet the requirements, to conduct a stop and search. Right. One common one, the most prominent that most people would know about, is called PACE Section 1, which what that enables is an officer, if they have reasonable grounds, what it means is that they've got to have an objective reason that they can point to say, this is why I believe or I suspect that this person I want to stop for stop and search. They can't do it simply because they don't like the look of someone. They've got to have something objective they can point to. Now that might be some intelligence, some information that the officer's aware of in the background that suggests a person of that description can be stopped and searched. Right. But it's got to be objective, and that's the key phrase.
Give me an example of what do you mean objective? Give me an example.
So,
sorry, White, just leading into that question. So are you, from what you're telling me, it's objective, so there's no profiling involved whatsoever?
No, under law, there should not be any profiling. There's got to be an objective reason why someone's stopped and searched.
Right.
Now, there is, I can talk about Section 60, which I'll come to in a moment, but generally speaking, you've got to have a reasonable grounds to stop and search someone. And then even then, there's certain procedures you have to follow. And actually, I just want to come on to the point you're making about the moral and the respect side of it. Yes, under law, I can stop and search someone if I have that objective, reasonable ground that provides me with that, the criteria. But actually, beyond that, it's about being a person. It's about engaging with that person and explaining what you're doing in a human way. You're engaging with that person. So as much as you're a police officer and the person will think, this police officer is stopping me, if you can explain to them why you're doing it in a way which isn't overbearing and just being a person and engaging with them, then actually both sides will feel that interaction will be a lot more smoother.
And that's going to come down to training then, isn't it? I mean...
well, actually, does it come... I mean, yes, there will be an element of training, but some of it is being a person.
Common sense.
If I speak to someone on the street, am I trained to speak to that person, say hello in a polite way?
Yeah, sure.
Some of that is just, being a person that's nice. And I think, yes, there is an element of training, and all police officers are trained in terms of what the law says and how they can stop that. But, being that person that can, make people feel confident that they are professional and that they are treating them as a human being and respecting them, that is something I think that comes from within as well. The one thing that I just want to touch upon, so yes, normally you do have to have an objective reason. There's something called a Section 60, Section 60 authority, which comes under the Criminal Justice Public Order Act, which I won't cite. But anyway, Section 60 is commonly known as Section 60. Now, what that does is it in a defined area for a defined space of time, no more than 24 hours, where a superintendent or maybe an inspector, but in certain scenarios, but where a superintendent is satisfied, and there's criteria they have to satisfy, that they put a Section 60 in place. Now, the Section 60 effectively means that the requirement to have a reasonable ground to suspect is lifted. That is no longer required in that geographical area. Now, we have used Section 60s, and in law it's a superintendent, but actually we, as a metropolitan police policy, is to get the approval from a commander level. So as superintendent, I will consider it, but I will always run it by a commander to make sure that they are content for the Section 60 to come into place. And when it does come into place, we've used it in Newham, for example, following tragic circumstances of a murder or whatever.
Is there one in place towards High Street North? That sort of area?
Not today.
No? Okay.
Not today.
I thought a note. Do you have to give a public notice where it says...
well, we can, and we liaise with our partners. So the council, the local authority, a lot of our major, all the partners that we deal with regularly, they will be notified as soon as possible. It might not be immediately, because operational reasons we might not get a chance.
Sure.
But we do consult with them if we can beforehand to say, we're thinking about putting a Section 60 in place. What are your views on this? Would you object or would you agree? And this is why I want to do it. And part of my job as superintendent is always, I try and make sure that if I'm considering a Section 60, I will always consult with my colleagues, the partners that we work with, what's called a Gold Group members. And Gold Group are people that we get together following a critical incident, such as a murder or such as whatever it might be. But yeah, we will consider a Section 60 if the requirements are met. But that's very stringent, and that can only be for up to 24 hours at a time.
Interesting. So just sort of in summary, so when you put a Section 60 in place, it's probably a major scene if there's a
so a Section 60 can be, it's over a geographically defined area. Okay. So it can be, sometimes I've used it for the whole of Newham.
Okay.
Which means that if you are within Newham, then in theory you could be stopped and searched by an officer simply by virtue of being in Newham, although practically you'd expect an officer to apply common sense as well. But it can be limited to a geographical area within Newham. So I've used it following in Plashett Park, around Plashett Park when there was a critical incident there, or around Stratford, or in Waltham Forest we might do it around Leighton. So it depends on where, as a superintendent, which area you feel under the law would meet the criteria. And the criteria can involve things like, do you anticipate something to happen, or has something happened which gives you concern that something might flow from that? And you need to consider all these factors.
What sort of guiding principles do the foot soldiers, the Bobby on the beat, what guiding principle would he use to sort of determine? I know we mentioned that, reasonable grounds have lifted, right? So essentially he can pull anybody over and say, right, okay, start questioning them. But what sort of guiding principle does he use? I mean, he can't practically stop everybody, can he?
I mean, I appreciate you use foot soldiers. I disagree with that term. I think frontline officers are more important than me. If it wasn't for them, I couldn't do my job. My job is to facilitate what they do.
Apologies, what term was it that I
That's
used?
Fine. That's fine. I would have called them, they are key to delivering what we do in policing.
So which term was it that I shouldn't have used? Sorry.
The foot soldiers.
The foot soldiers. Apologies.
Think, they are, in my mind, they are, the frontline
soldiers, bro. I'd say soldiers, man.
They're officers.
There's a street word for soldiers, isn't it? If you're a soldier, you're
I think the colloquial term amongst the youth is feds.
Yeah.
Feds. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yes. Colloquially, that's
for you
used.
to comment.
But I mean, the point I was trying to make is that the police officers do a fantastic and difficult job in the circumstances, and it's not easy at the best of times, but they do what they can. Sorry, what was your question again?
About the guiding principle that they use.
So, when it comes to stop and search, if a Section 60 is in place. Then a briefing will be given to all of the officers to explain why a Section 60 has come into place.
Sure.
To explain why it's in place, and then and that would help inform them about whether or not they should stop and search someone in that area.
Sure.
So if they know the reasons why I put a Section 60 in place, then they'll use that as part of their guiding principle. Other than that, if it's not a Section 60 and if it's a normal Section 1 pace stop and search, then that is for the individual police officer to take, to account for their actions. I can't direct a police officer to stop and search someone in any scenario. It's for them to make that individual decision.
So it's discretionary, is it?
They've got to justify for themselves. Every officer, it's a power. It's quite an intrusive power. It's quite a sensitive power. So each officer has to be clear in their own mind and justify in their own mind why they've decided to use that stop and search power.
I'm told I should take a break, Wahid. I'm going to go to commercials, okay?
Okay.
Or for free delivery, call us on 0208 521 0000. We have fresh deliveries of poultry and vegetables every day. Waris Food Store in Walthamstow.
Reliant Solicitors fight to protect your legal rights. Our firm offers a wide range of services including immigration, family law, commercial law, civil litigation, personal injury, landlord and tenant disputes and employment law. Visit us at 602A High Road, 7 Kings, Ilford, IG3 8BU or call 0207 183 5439. Reliant Solicitors, where every client matters.
Bridgen Solicitors in Ilford, the name you can trust. We provide services in immigration, family law, landlord and tenant matters, commercial leases and civil litigation. We also deal in personal injury claim and road traffic accidents. Call us on 0203 475 4545. Visit us at 170 Cranbrook Road, Ilford, IG1 4LX.
Ramadan FM 2018.
The voice of British Muslims.
Atlantic Distributions. Whether it is frozen fish, marinated Lahori masala fish, or lamb offals, we have them available at very competitive prices. We are wholesale suppliers to restaurants, butchers, and caterers. Visit us at 51 to 53 Upton Lane, London, E7 9PA. Contact us on 07415 474 185.
Usman needs the adhesive to work. If not, his day will be a disaster. So, Usman, if you really need something to bond, grab a tube of CT1 from your local stockist. An incredibly powerful sealant and construction adhesive that's fast, flexible and strong. It can be used anywhere, even underwater. For more info, ct1limited.com or follow us on Facebook or ring us on 0208 555 1448.
In an age of technological advancement, mass communication and social media, having the right website and app can be the difference that your business needs. AppSite Tech are here to take your business to the next level. No matter how simple or how sophisticated your requirements are, our technicians will work with you to create a bespoke website and app for your organization. Call us now on 07538081212 or visit appsitetech.co.
Hi all, we're back again. And hope you're enjoying the show so far. It's been very intriguing to have these two personalities in the studio. And you know what? Let me not downplay it. Our own Ismail Mohammed is quite a personality as well. When he talks about the Minhaj, it's just difficult not to get enthused by his passion. He's so passionate about it, mashallah. And for all the years I've known him, the passion just seems to increase. It doesn't seem to abate in any way. Mashallah, may Allah keep him sort of strong and passionate about this cause. Wanted to quickly put in a word. Again, it's something that Ismail mentioned. The Grenfell Tower investigation and the victims are currently going through this, reliving that particular horrific day that happened last year. And just wanted to say that our sympathies are with you, and hopefully this inquiry will give you the justice. And we pray for you, and I trust all the listeners will pray, keep them in their prayers. And when you listen to the stories of that day, it does break one down into tears. So please do not forget those who are going through this suffering and those who have passed. Having spoken about those who have passed, I'd like to pass it over to Maz. We've talked about some local affairs, some antisocial behaviour and policing issues, and one international affair that we seem to have forgotten about is the Rohingya crisis and the refugee crisis in Bangladesh. So I'm going to pass it over to Maz to talk a bit about that and what perhaps he is doing in regards to Rohingya. Over to you, Maz.
Yeah. I think it's a very... did you? I don't know whether you guys were aware, but the Rohingyans are actually the most persecuted people in the world at this moment in time, and that was as a result of a UN investigation that looked at how people in crisis are being treated, what access to services that they've got, and when they compared all the factors. So, for example, you've got refugees the world over, you've got people in war zones, Syria. If you look at that particular flashpoint, but the Rohingya, out of all of them, they said the Rohingya actually are the most persecuted. Now, I was actually in the Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh just 3 weeks ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I travelled on the 5th of May. 6th of May. I travelled to Bangladesh. I went to the borders with Burma. I was in no man's land, and I saw the horrific conditions that these people were having to endure. It was actually very, very hot. It was right at the end of the hot season. So if you go back to that part of the world, you'll know that just before the rains come, it gets incredibly hot. You really can't bear it. So that was the time then, and lots of kids, lots of young children, who've lost their families and are being looked after by other Rohingyan refugees, and they're living in under sheets, under tarpaulin and whatever else, and credit to the aid agencies, they're all there. UNICEF, the World Food Programme. I saw a few British charities there as well, but the situation is quite tragic. It's like a modern day version of ethnic cleansing. It's happening right there in front of you. The border was just a few feet away. There were armed guards there. The border actually came up as these people were kicked out of their homes in Burma. The Burmese authorities put the border up, and they were left to fend for themselves. I think credit to the Bangladeshi authorities; they've done well to sort of help with the meager resources that they have. Let's be honest, it's a developing country, but what I saw were tragic scenes. People who have gone through absolute horrifying experiences, to be uprooted, kicked out of their ancestral homes, and to be put into a foreign country where they're now refugees. We delivered aid, lots of food aid. We built through our efforts, and again we had a fundraiser last year. We raised £100,000. Your organisation actually contributed as well, and I know your organisation's working out there as well.
Hard Welfare Foundation.
Yeah, that's right.
We've got bodies on the ground there.
Yeah. So we had a fundraiser locally. We had all the local mosques, but it wasn't just the Muslim community that helped. It was a cross-community sort of effort, and that money is now being used to feed people. We've built, I think we've pledged to build 150 temporary homes. So it's again another. Yeah, I mean, that for me as a politician, somebody who is a local politician, I think that it's great to get away from all the village sort of antics that goes on in local politics, and then to see real problems, and it just puts everything into perspective.
You know what, Maz, what you say, it really touches a nerve, because again, you said you get caught up in your day-to-day life, and how big an issue is knife crime and gang culture and this and drugs, and undoubtedly these are local issues, they're big issues, they're very important issues, they need to be addressed, and the people who are in responsible positions are doing a great job to try to address them, but then when you go to a situation like that, it just really kind of like it's really moving, and it just basically puts everything into perspective, like you quite rightly said. I think some of the our du'as, especially in the month of Ramadan, are with the brothers and sisters in Rohingya, regardless of their faith, regardless of just as humans, they've undergone some of the most horrific treatment, and I don't understand how somebody that basically won the Nobel Peace Prize is basically watching whilst this is going on right under her nose.
Well, I think it's probably more than watching. I would go far as saying it's probably encouraging.
Encouraging, even, yeah. So this is and our heart goes out to all of the suffering that's going out around the world, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Palestine. We saw just at the beginning of Ramadan about 60 Palestinians were shot down by Israeli snipers just because they were protesting. It was a peaceful protest. A lot of them were shot in the back as they were trying to run away. This is what's going on. So our du'as from here, we can say, go on, Cam, you want to say something?
I was just going to say that, it's far too easily forgotten, especially with Rohingya crisis. For some reason, the media just went quiet on it.
Yeah,
literally.
I mean, over 1 million people have been made refugees, and
there you go.
they're all camped in Bangladesh, which is already overpopulated. It's one of the most populated pieces of real estate in the world, and they're there. It's been allowed to happen. There's been a little bit of an outcry, but not much. We don't want to go on to other countries around the world. Let's look at what our country, what Britain has done. Are we still supplying arms to the Myanmar government? Are we still, there are issues that people can actually get in and climb. Work. Look, I'm not somebody who's a preacher, and I have a very wide vision in terms of I represent everybody, Muslims, Christians, non-Muslims, people who have no faith, etc. So this isn't an issue about religion. It's an issue about like you said, humanitarianism. That you touched upon the deaths of those people in Gaza, and then the wider situation about peace and justice in the Middle East, in Palestine and now Syria as well, and the denial of democracy in different parts of that part of the world. I don't think far be it for me to have any solutions. I'm not the Prime Minister, and I don't think that day will realistically ever come. But what we can do is, as individuals, we need to do our little bit on the ground. And, that's what I realised.
That's it. Bring Wahid back in. I mean, again, charity starts from home. That's actually an Islamic principle, and we've got issues right here, right before us, and Wahid's on the forefront of trying to basically address some of these issues. So coming back to some of the stuff that we were talking about, one thing which I think Cam wanted to ask about the actual police force being representative. Cam?
Absolutely. The thing is I don't know if I can relay this. I had reason to be in States about 2 years ago, and one of the things I noticed, Wahid, was that the population was largely black and ethnic. I was in a southern state of America, but the actual officials, the police officers, were actually all white. They were not representative of the community that they actually were sort of policing. And when they're not representative, when they don't come from that community, they do not, I can sort of definitely say, they do not appreciate the sensitivities, the nuances of that community, and they can't actually be that effective in policing them. What are your thoughts on that, Wahid? And do you think that your police, as it stands, represents the community, is indicative of the community that it polices?
So, I mean, obviously, America is a very different country to us from a policing perspective, culturally, and just the way it operates. It's
racial division as well. Yes,
very different setup. I can talk about what we do in the Met, and I can talk about obviously what policing in the UK. Yes, absolutely. The basic fundamental founding principle when the police was made was by Robert Peel. One of them was around the public are the ears of the police and the police are the ears of the public. Basically, the point being made is that you need each other. The public are the police and police are the public.
Sure.
If you haven't got, and that some of that is about confidence, some of that is about representation. Absolutely. Somewhere like London, which is a very multicultural city, which is very diverse, you've got 300 odd languages spoken in London alone. Somewhere as diverse and as multicultural as that needs to have a police force which is representative of that, and it should. We are making steps, we are making efforts to try and get towards that position. So now you'll find that there are, for example, different ways of joining the police. In the past, you would have to join as a PC, constable, and work your way up. Work your way through the ranks in the organisation. Whereas now you can join at different levels. So you could join as a direct entrant inspector. You could join as a direct entrant superintendent. You could join under a scheme called Police Now, which is around attracting graduates and providing them with a fast track process. So there's different ways of bringing people into the police. But absolutely, there's no shying away. There's more that we need to do to try and encourage people from the black and Asian and minority ethnic communities to become involved with the police so that it is more representative of the community that we serve. There is a lot more that we can do, but we are making steps as best as we can. But this has been an ongoing issue, certainly even from when I was a child. I remember the police, it's always had challenges to try and make sure that it's a bit more representative, certainly of somewhere as diverse as London. We've certainly improved, but we've still got a long way to go.
So it's work in progress.
And it is work in progress. And some of that is about appealing to your listeners, to the families and the parents that are listening to encourage the young sons and daughters, their families, to consider policing as a career. And then that way we can, hopefully, as people, look to see the role models that would increase.
That's quite interesting. I tell you, in 2014, when we started Ramadan FM 2014, that was the first year we done it. I had Superintendent Ian Lardner, who came onto my show, and he basically ran a few workshops in our centre, and from those workshops, he recruited 5 of our members today are currently serving police officers because of that workshop. It was 2 workshops. There's only 2 workshops that we ran, and so I don't think it's that difficult. I think if it's basically sold as a way that, you know, this is a good career, this is, if you've got the passion to make a difference, you know, you could talk about the money, you could talk about the interesting jobs. How are we doing that? As how are we intending to basically? You're saying there's still things that need to be done. What is being done? When are we going to have our next workshop? Basically, that's what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm happy to help with that workshop whenever we can. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Let's do it.
And if we can encourage more people to join, then why wouldn't we?
Let's do it. Let's set a date. Let's set a date, and let's basically hold a workshop, and let's get people in from various departments of the police. And basically, because the police is an ocean, you know, the police force is
absolutely.
You know.
So, I mean, I can speak to our HR department, our recruitment team, and we can link in with you. I don't see, you know, the more ways that we can try and encourage people to consider policing as an option, then why not? I mean, I've touched upon a few earlier. The ones that I didn't touch upon are, you know, there's lots of ways. Another way is being a special constable, which is when you are a police officer, you've got all the powers of a regular police officer, but you volunteer to be a police officer, and you're called a special police officer, and people that join as specials, they do that on top of whatever other commitments they have, and that's a fantastic way, you know, to be able to do that. Provide, you know, that's someone that's very motivated to serve their community, and a lot of people will use that as a kind of a platform to build upon to join the police. To say, actually, I've got a taste of it. This is actually what I want to do, and can join that way. Or you can join as a cadet, you know, for the younger children, or, you know, the people that are thinking about what they want to do after school. There are the myriads of ways of joining the police. It's just about advocating them. It's about encouraging people to think about policing.
Okay.
In the same way that you might consider professionals. You know, when they think of careers, people think of, you know, in the Asian communities, you'll have your ideas of where you want to go, but policing should be one of those options.
A business.
Yeah.
Why? How long have you been in Islam?
So the reason I talked about direct entrant was because I joined as a direct entrant myself.
Oh,
so
did you?
I joined traditionally to be a police officer. You start as a constable, you go through training, and you work your way up as a PC, sergeant, inspector, and so forth. I was very fortunate, very privileged enough to join the Met in the first round of people that joined as a direct entrant superintendent. So I came in directly as a superintendent, and I've been here for, well, I joined at the back end of 2014. So
wow,
yeah, so I've been here.
From the way you speak, it seems that you've been doing it for a long time. And the thing is, it leads me to a question.
Okay.
I'm monopolising the air.
No, go.
Did you have a question?
It's your show, man.
Oh, is it?
I'm only here to
keep
back you
forgetting.
up,
I mean, the thing is you're much more seasoned.
Wednesdays is my drive time.
Okay.
Thursdays is your drive
okay.
time.
Wait until the Maz and Wahid start show stuff.
I'm only here to facilitate, man.
Something that Maz
because you tried blowing out on me, I want to make that live on air as well.
There
Come
you go.
phone me and said he's gonna blow out on me, and I said don't blow out on me.
In my defence, I had a few exams to prepare for, and I was inundated. But hey, listen, it leads me to a question, something that Maz touched upon. Home Office reports, dropping number of police officers.
Yeah.
I put it to you, is it merely because the fact that being a police officer now is far more dangerous than it used to be, with the gun crime, with the terrorist atrocities that have been taking place on the streets of London, like last year in July? Could it possibly be that? What do you think, Wahid? Is that definitely a contributory factor?
When you what as in?
Is it far more dangerous than a job? Yeah,
I think policing has always been a difficult job. It's always been a job where, you know, if you look at the history of it, people unfortunately have given, you know, sadly have given their lives in the course of duty. That's always been the case.
Sure.
The nature and the dynamics of the risks that are now faced have changed. There's no doubt about that. But the risk has always been there. And when you sign up to join the police, you do that knowing that you're doing it to serve the community for that greater good. But the risk has always been there. And however you look at it, you know, if I look at the history, I can point to a lot of people that have given their lives, made that ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty.
Indeed. Over to you, Ish, any questions?
Yeah, I mean, basically, just a final kind of area which I wanted to touch was actually reporting crime. There's before it used to be, well, we've always had 999. Sometimes you get 999 call people saying, you know, they've lost their cat. Can you know?
Well, 999 is for emergencies,
you know,
and just
well,
highlight that.
To
and
some
obviously
people, that is
people,
an emergency.
people
you know,
if it's not an emergency, phone 101.
Yeah.
But 999.
So if you've lost your cat, you can call 101, right?
Well, if it's not an emergency, use 101. But for emergencies, absolutely.
I do want to basically bring in a wallahi, bro. This is a true incident. You know,
go online.
I had just come back from Pakistan. We were involved in a political struggle in Pakistan. And basically, people were shot down, and it was quite horrendous what actually went on there. And I come back thinking, you know what, Pakistan, they haven't got qadr for life. They don't value life. You know, they say in Punjabi, no qadr for life. You know, and I think it was that very week, I was at home, and blue lights outside, and you know, and I thought, what's going on here? I went outside, and the police are there. And then what's it called? And then one fire brigade turns up, and then another fire brigade turns up, and they're all around this car. And I'm thinking, oh, you know what? There's someone stuck in this car. Wallahi, bruv, it was a cat that's stuck in this car. Yeah, okay, perfectly safe. It was a lie, but it was just like not getting out from this car. And there are 2 fire brigades. Wallahi, bro, there are 2 fire brigades. I actually made a video of it and put it up. And I sent it to my cousins in Pakistan. I said, look, this is what you call valuing life, my friend. You know, look at the police force here, look at the fire brigade. So that's a different perspective. I'm not saying encouraging people, if you know their cat gets caught in car, start calling 999. But reporting methods. Talk to us about how crime can be reported, and what should be the severity before you pick up the phone and say, you know what, now's the time I need to call 999. And other methods of actually reporting crime as well.
So whenever there's an emergency, and an emergency is whatever you feel to be an emergency. If it's an emergency, then the 999 should be your default position. There should be no reason why you feel hesitant around ringing 999 if you feel it's an emergency, and you know, if your life's at threat, for example. That would be one example, but that's just one.
Yeah.
In terms of other ways of reporting, you can do it online, and obviously in the digital world that we now live in, that's, you know, people can do it from their phones. People find it quite convenient just to tap on their phones, go onto the Met website. You can report most crimes online as well. If you want to, you can.
So what would I have done in this scenario? The other day I came out of my house, again, true story, come in my house, come into the mosque and open my car door, and my steering wheel was gone. Someone nicked my BMW steering wheel. What would I haven't reported it till now, because I just thought, forget it, it's gone now, isn't it? My steering's gone.
So you should report it, and you should, even now, I'd encourage you to report it, if not at least to get a crime reference number to help you with your insurance, I'd imagine. But
insurance is going to cost me £500.
Well, look, from a police
my steering cost me £400.
If a crime has been committed, and be that your steering wheel or be that whatever it might be, you should report all crimes, because when it's underreported, then it provides us, from a policing perspective, it doesn't help us trying to work out where our challenges are. So if your car was if it was attacked, or a wheel was taken, it might not have been just your car. It might have been that over the last week on that road, another 5 cars were vandalized. But if none of them reported it to us, then we wouldn't pick up that pattern. We wouldn't be able to make sure that we have patrols specifically around the area. So I'd encourage yourself and all of your listeners to just as if there is something that's happened, if it's criminal activity, please report it. You can do it online, and in that scenario, the choice is yours. You can either go on the website, whatever's convenient for you. You could do it via 101, or you could do it where someone comes to visit you in your house when you make an appointment. An officer will come and take a statement, or you could come into Forest Gate Police, or whichever police station is nearest to you, which is open and available to the public. There are ways of doing it, or you can approach a police officer on the street, or in fact, I'll speak to Maz a little bit earlier. You can, if for whatever reason, some people feel that they can't approach the police. Firstly, I'd encourage you to do so. But if you really feel you can't, then at least report the crime via your MP, via your counsellor, so that at least that way we are aware of what's happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I have had constituents come up to me and report things, and I've actually passed them on to Wahid. So it does work. I mean, yeah, you can use various methods, but never ever be afraid of doing that. Just going back on your point about the value of life in this country. I think we sometimes we look at the faults of this society and sort of make it out, and those are very important things. You know, we need to resolve them. But generally, we live in a very we live in a democratic society. We live in a society where people are accountable, where life is valued, where people are free to follow their own faith and their beliefs, and we can engage with everybody. And I think in obviously being a time of Ramadan as well, where we look in ourselves, we're all fasting and we're going through that. I think it's quite important to sort of try and give back as well to society. I think it goes right back to the first conversation that we had today, which is about how do I become a counsellor and what do I do. I think it's not about becoming a counsellor, in Wahid's case being superintendent or whatever. It's contributing in any which way. There's people out there who are probably very well educated in good jobs, others who are running their own businesses, some who are trying to set off in their lives, but never ever forget to give back, just like you guys are giving here today.
Absolutely. What a
thank you very much, guys. I mean, from my perspective, I'm hand it over to you, Cam.
Is it a wrap then? Yeah.
Just to say thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, absolutely.
As well.
Hey, look, no, thank you both of you. Seriously, I'm sure you're uber busy, and basically taking the time out to sort of come here and like I can't stress it enough. You guys are role models, absolutely. And if there are young people listening, I urge you to inspire to be like these people. And seriously,
these two young people.
These two, yeah, of course. You know what it is my dad used to say to me, he goes, "Beta, you know when you're getting old, when police officers and heads of states and councillors look younger than you." Okay.
And they do. A lot of the officers that I have the privilege of leading, they look so much younger than me.
You know what? Actually, I will give a little plug actually to.
Sure.
My next drive time. You mentioned you were in the States 2 years ago, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, that was on Muhammad Ali's funeral.
That's right. Yes.
That's right. You went. Cam travelled to go to Muhammad Ali's funeral, and my next drive time show is basically a tribute to Muhammad Ali, which is going to be on Wednesday. And yesterday, I've managed to confirm, and I spoke to him myself, George Foreman.
Oh wow!
Who will basically be on the show on Ramadan FM
physically, or it'll be a calling?
He'll be calling into the show. We'll be basically taking his view on Muhammad Ali and obviously that great Rumble in the Jungle fight. We'll be talking us through that again. So guys, Ramadan FM is doing things, man. We've got George Foreman.
Wow!
So
that personality, Muhammad Ali, transcended race and religion. And when I went out to his funeral, there were little kids, so like 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds running around with T-shirts saying "I am Ali," and they were black, they were Hispanic, they were white. That guy's personality just transcended all of that.
You know what? And Sheikh Hamza Yusuf actually quotes a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he says that, and I've heard Shaykh al-Islam quote this hadith so many times, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves someone, He basically calls the angels. And he says to the angels, "I love this person." And the angels say, "Yes, Ya Allah, you've made this statement, you love him. So what's the hukm for us? Why are you telling us for?" And he's saying, "I'm telling you to love him as well." So then the angels say, "Okay, we love him as well." He said, "Now I want you to go and tell the rest of the angels to love this person as well."
Wow.
So the angels go and tell all the angels that Allah's hukm is that Allah has fallen in love with this person, and we are ordered now to also love this person. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes and says further, "Now I want you to go to the earth and plant this person's love in the hearts of the people." And isn't it, and Sheikh Hamza Yusuf says, isn't it ironic that a black man, there's nobody more loved, more revered in our modern day history than somebody who's black and somebody whose name is Muhammad, and he's loved by the entire world, literally. So just ending on that note,
that's a good positive note.
That was a sheikh that basically made that analogy. So alhamdulillah.
MashaAllah. Okay, I think once again, thank you for listening. Thank you to the guests. Thank you for Ishmael. Thank you for Usman for making this happen. And keep listening, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.